Lot of guys questioning themselves after that comment. They're like, "Ooh, I need to turn Tiger King off for a little while. I'm not comfortable."
I'm sure
Pearl
that
is upset.
Shut that baby up!
News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com, brought to you by midfirst.com. Go check them out at midfirst.com. And another quarantine edition as all the guys are back safe and sound from their own abodes. As Josh McQuiston joins us from the Houston area where people are being turned away at the border from coming in from Louisiana because it's so bad there. And the rest of us are all here in Oklahoma where we're just hunkered down and trying to avoid it from getting any worse than it is. And guys, it's week number 4 of quarantine. It's actually 4 weeks ago today since Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder kind of turned the sports world on its head with the cancellation of the Thunder game. And this is our third podcast since that started. We took a break that first week trying to get everything quarantined and wiped down and set up so we could all be in our separate holes basically until this thing gets over with. So how is everybody doing today? I guess Josh, we'll start with you since you're in the hot spot down there in Houston.
You know, I'm good. It's been pretty optimistic. A lot of the stuff that that is being spread around the state, and I think a lot of it has been. I have to give Governor Abbott a lot of credit. I think he's been pretty proactive. He hasn't waited for things to be handled on higher levels. He's just made decisions and said we're going to do this. And I think both really Dallas was very aggressive from the start. I think they were one of the first cities to just come out and say we're going to shelter in place.
Yeah.
Period. Mm-hmm. And I think they did a nice job, and that kind of made it easier for places like Austin and Houston to kind of follow suit.
Yeah, and I think Oklahoma, I don't think there's as much celebration from the governor's side of things, but I think Oklahoma City and Norman and Tulsa in the major cities did a really good job of kind of giving a serious, note to it. And like you said, it hasn't really been. I think people did kind of get the message a little bit in Oklahoma, like, okay, this isn't just another day. Like, stop going to Michael's and Hobby Lobby. You need to shut down, and let's take this a little bit more serious. I do kind of get the feel that that's kind of going on out there. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. Prayer and a glue gun can only get you so far. I would agree that David Holt and Bria Clark out of Norman and GT Bynum have been pillars of leadership, I guess, as far as what you want going through all this shit. And I don't know. It's been a interesting 24 hours with the comments out of Stillwater, and I'm sure we're going to get into all of that. But, again, I've said it a couple times, and I think we said it on the podcast this past week, like, sitting at home and having built-in excuses to do nothing has been my dream forever. So right now I'm kind of living a dream right now.
The crock pot come in yet, or the air fryer? I know there was talk that an air fryer was possibly the choice for you as you expand your cooking.
He talked me into the slow cooker, and it is en route. So hopefully by, I don't know, maybe this weekend. I don't know. It kind of gave me like one of those 7 to 10 day type things. So I'm not sure.
Is anybody?
It's an important time to say for all those people that are not ordering things on Amazon and going out because we're getting these 7 to 10 day, it could be forever. We've ordered several things and almost everything has come in within 3 or 4 days. Like, I think they're scared, like just being like, it's possible it could take this long.
They're
but
being
it
cautious
hasn't been nearly
with
as
their
bad. Yeah. But everything we've gotten has come in much earlier than we originally ordered and thought.
Is anybody doing like Instacart or a grocery store delivery?
No, my parents have. I've still gone inside the store. I don't know. Maybe I'm fearless in that way. I go. Me and
That's
Mike
your
Gundy have
adventure
gone,
in your
grocery
life?
Shopping.
You're fearless.
You're a man's man, Eddie.
He's actually hunting for his food from aisle to aisle. Eddie's requesting that they release live livestock so he can catch it as he goes from aisle to aisle in Homeland and Crest.
I think a lot of people could learn from the lessons of hunting. I've never
another
gone hunting,
crucial.
though, so maybe I should.
Carrie, you talked last week about the guy that followed you too closely at the store. The thing that bothers me at the store are the guys that still don't get it. If you don't know you need it, don't pick it up. Don't pick it up. Just leave it alone.
Well, go with a purpose. Go with a list.
Yes.
Like, know what you want. And get in there and get out. Don't be dilly-dallying around in a grocery store right now.
Sure. Like, you don't really need to know the sodium difference between A and B. Just go with one of them and go with God. Like, it's going to be fine.
If I had to sit there and watch someone debate a purchase, I would, I would lose it.
It's happening. Yeah. It's happening. And, like, I really do. I keep my hands in my pockets because I'm one of those people that normally I do look at stuff. Like, I'm looking, I'm checking, but, like, I literally make a focused effort to keep my hands in my pockets. Because, no, it's not about me. It's about, like, if I touch something and then somebody else has to deal with it. Like, I'm trying to help somebody down the line. Just don't touch anything you don't have to touch. Like, that's not being crazy. It's just being careful right now.
Now, do you always make sure, like, you leave the girls at home and one of you goes out on trips?
Yes.
So no
literally,
bringing the girls.
And a lot of it's because Tiffany's at the hospital, so, like, I go most of the errands just because there is less chance of, you know, there being a problem there. So I run most of the errands, and that's, you know, just kind of what we've decided to do. But, yeah, the girls, I don't think the girls have gone in anywhere in probably 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep, same here. I stay home with baby, and it's Brittany that does all the shopping.
She's the hunter, you're the gatherer.
Yep, and she was someone who does take her time usually, and that annoys me. That's why I don't like to go grocery shopping with her. So this has forced her to step her game up.
Interesting. All right, so daily life still going on, still trying to figure it out. But in the meantime, still kind of some interesting things going on in the sports world. Coaches are kind of doing a good job of checking in, having teleconferences. Lincoln Riley has had one, which, Lincoln Riley, he's gonna shine in that situation. I mean, he's kind of built for this. He's built for how to handle, really difficult situations. He's just smooth. He's good in the press conference. Always has been. On the other hand, then you have Mike Gundy, who had a teleconference yesterday, and in true football coach fashion, this is how I'm going to sell it. Comes out and says all the things that you don't. It's like you have inside voices and outside voice. Like, he's using his outside voice inside, and it's disturbing a lot of people. As he's saying he would like to start basically testing and quarantining everybody in the athletic department and get his players back practicing, working out in 3 to 4 weeks, when the Big 12, by my calculations, is still 7 to 8 weeks or 7 weeks away from even getting past the quarantine stuff that they've put on every team in the league. So it was an interesting day.
Unless Gundy read it wrong. Maybe Gundy thought the Big 12 said May 1st and not May 31st.
Well, you should know that before you speak to a group of reporters. I'm sorry. That would be the dumbest thing ever to not know that.
This is Mike Gundy, isn't it? This is what you should expect. That's why I understand it, and believe me, what I thought he said was, I thought it was disgusting. I thought Kyle Porter from Pistols firing it ahead. I thought it was embarrassing for not just the university, but for the state of Oklahoma to be kind of almost associated with that. But then again, at the same time, it's so on brand, it's so Mike Gundy that you also kind of got to look at it and say, there goes that crazy uncle thing again. I wasn't blown away, I guess, by the comments as much as I was like, I don't believe that Mike Gundy, I think both can be true. I thought what he said was disgusting, but I also don't think that Mike Gundy realistically thinks on May 31st, he's going to call all of his players and say, you got to get your ass to Stillwater or you're going to be cut. Like, that's just not going to happen, nor do I think he's going to put his players into harm's way. So I don't know. I thought that was more of just the aura of what we've come to know as Mike Gundy when he talks to the media. Of course, he's like, just the idea of him watching OAN and getting his news from wherever he does. Like, it's so on brand that, like, why would you expect anything else from the mullet head coach from Midwest City, Oklahoma?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Mike, if you want to say Mike Gundy is anything in quarantine terms, Mike Gundy is the Joe Exotic of college football coaches. I mean, you look at him, he looks, he's got a mullet. Like, that's the first thing. He did everything yesterday except for blame Lincoln Riley for someone's death. I mean, it's like, he started talking about the uber conservative news network that is driving everybody crazy in press briefings. I'm sorry, like at some point you would have been like, maybe you guys in the media need to check it out because Lincoln Riley killed Joe Diffie.
I just love, we keep talking about how on brand this is. This is on brand for a coach, and I'm gonna. The perfect example is the so-called medical people saying the herd of healthy people. They're not so-called. They're doctors. Like, they're epidemiologists. They have degrees that say they are these things. This isn't like the so-called experts. Like, like the guy
that's
on ESPN,
the OAN
you can debate his
speaking.
expertise. You can debate his expertise. The guy that is the 1-year NFL pro that is now talking about the NFL like he
what is it, the
forever.
immunity herd? Is that what the tin hat foil wearing people believe?
Saying the herd of healthy people that may have built up antibodies. And that is a conversation you can have. But the so-called, that is such a coaching, like, that's me dismissing you. Like, I don't really take what you're saying seriously.
But Eddie, have we heard yet what his brothers Stan and Jeff think?
Yeah, Jamel Hill's a idiot.
But she's not. She's not really in sports anymore. I mean, she hasn't been. By the way, people, she doesn't work at ESPN anymore. Don't be like, oh, that's typical ESPN politics. Like, she works like at the Atlantic or something.
At ESPN for a reason.
How many tweets did Clay Travis send out about her and ESPN yesterday before he realized she doesn't work at ESPN?
Did he? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm guessing he did. I make it an active point to avoid Clay Travis.
I cannot imagine the shit show that is. It's a circus. And you know what it comes down to? And I know that we don't want to spend an entire time on this, but you either fall on two sides of the thing on Mike Gundy. You either are conservative and you don't think it's that big of a deal. We need to get the economy stimulated again. Or you're on the other side of it and the far, far left side of it with Jamel Hill that thinks Mike Gundy's standing to get these kids back on campus so he can make more money off of them. Like, both of those sides are just so far in the wrong, in my opinion, that, like, I don't know. Maybe that's just how I am, that I want to go down the middle on it. But people just can't when you talk about, issues like this.
People are going to complicate this for their own reasons, for their own talking points.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's sports radio is going to take the stand of, like you said, well, he's a plantation owner. That's all he's coming off as. No, I mean, like, seriously, like, I mean,
I'm sure.
he only
I'm sure
cares.
it's out there. It's
he
just
only
crazy.
cares about. Well, I put it out there, so I'm the one to blame, I guess. But no, I'm just going extreme cases. Like he only cares about what he can get out of these kids. He's putting their health at risk, and I get it. He opened himself up to that, and then you're going to have the people that politicize it and say, "Oh, see how crazy the conservative right is that they're willing to put people's health in jeopardy just to stimulate the economy." And then you have the whole thing about money flowing through Oklahoma. It sounds stupid, and it was stupid. It was idiotic. But here's the thing. This was my point this morning. I'm not surprised. Mike Gundy is a football coach. He comes from football coaches like Pat Jones, and I'm not saying Pat Jones is a nut job. I work with him, and he's an old school guy. But Josh, you know this. I've worked with. I don't want to start naming names, but I've worked with a lot of coaches, and I've known a lot of coaches behind the scene beyond football. And some of those people are the craziest motherfuckers you will ever meet in your life. And you're surprised that most of them can keep a job without opening their mouths and letting their freak flag fly. Because if people really knew how they felt about certain things, they would be fired. Like, it's just, it's people's personalities. And we all kind of run into those people from time to time that we know they have kind of a weird side that is not deemed suitable for society, yet they go about their lives. I think everybody knows some of these people. They go about their lives and they just continue to do what they do, and hopefully they don't get on Facebook. I mean, like, how many times do you see like a Facebook post about some sheriff or something like that? Someone that's like an elected official that gives a really way out there political view, not realizing what that's going to look like to the general population and not just their small circle of friends. Like, that happens all the time.
Oh, sure. And,
it happens.
I think
it happens a ton.
Yeah.
It's easy for people to forget because they see these coaches up, on TV doing, and they're in front of the camera. They know they say the right things, they do the right things, they act correctly, or the way that I guess is socially acceptable, however you want to look at that. But they forget that these guys are just like your dad or your uncle or whatever. So, I mean, I do think, Carrie, and you could weigh in on this, like, the younger coaches, I do feel like, are much more aware of these things than now. There are outliers. There's still some that you're like, you're going to get in trouble at some point. Like, you just can't say the things you say sometimes. But I would say on the other hand, most of the coaches above, let's say 50, are not that different than most of people's dads or grandfathers or whoever listening.
They're
They've got
Neanderthals,
takes, and they lean in the very similar way to the people that you may think are crazy.
I remember when I went to my 20-year high school reunion, and everybody was having a good time, and I went on Facebook, and I noticed some people were putting up pictures that were not appropriate, that you would not want your colleagues. Like, for instance, there was one lady who was a high school teacher, and she had several pictures up of herself walking around with a beer between her boobs. And I politely contacted her and I said, hey, you might want to take that down or ask that people take that down because, you're a school teacher. And if someone's parents, if one of your students' parent or, is that the right way to say? One of your students' parents see that, they might get offended. And if enough people see that, it could really snowball on you. Like it wouldn't be good. And they were just like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Like people, like I'm saying, people in their 40s and 50s don't always understand what it looks like from the outside when you just talk about the things that you might talk about with your small circle of friends that are like, think like you do.
That's called being an olds. Don't you think at the core, both of what Mike Gundy and what Lincoln Riley said at its core are about the same? they're both football coaches, and they want football back as soon as possible.
Yeah, Lincoln was just diplomatic.
They went two completely different ways of talking about it, but at the same time, it's kind of like what we talked about last week after Lincoln Riley's teleconference, as far as, sometimes I think that we put in, I don't know, maybe I'm just completely screwed up in looking at it, but I think that we look at the words that these coaches say and we just put way too much stock into what they say. And at the whole, I think these daily updates for sports that aren't going to happen for another 5-6 months are ridiculous. And I know that they're offering hope for some. And
you talk about stories about the football season that just keep showing up, whether it's going to be played or not, every day.
It's exhausting.
No, I'm right there. I've tweeted about that a lot. Like, and it's almost a joke because it's like I tweet out, I'm not going to read your story with your quotes from, your AD or your conference commissioner about whether or not the football season is in jeopardy. Like, I'm not. And then Mike Gundy does what he does, and you're just like, God damn it. Like, there's no way that I cannot read this or hear about this or talk about this. It's like, you go so far. It's like, it's like, okay, I'm going to burn my jersey because you left me for another team, and you end up burning your house down.
Yeah. Well, and it just, the timing of it couldn't have been worse for him. It was like, for a lack of better term, sharks were in the water and they were circling, waiting for him to say something. And he jumped out there and did. And he looked like an idiot for saying it on the same week that you have the U.S. Surgeon General basically saying that this is going to be the week is going to be a modern Pearl Harbor. 1,200 people died yesterday. 16 people died in the state of Oklahoma. And you have Mike Gundy basically saying that it's not that big of a deal. That's the way that it appeared to a lot of people, regardless of if he wanted it to come across like that or not. And I think that also the other side of it too is Mike Gundy doesn't really give a damn. He said that before. This isn't the first time that he's come with some kind of, in a way, crazy rhetoric.
No, he does this all the time. He's always saying something that pisses off Mike Holder, and used to be Boone Pickens when he was still alive. But that's the thing. He is a non-filtered football coach that also has a very public, and he's not shy about his kind of conservative belief system. So it's and the other thing is this: he's a football coach. He's not an elected official. Like, I can't sit there and say, "Oh, how did you not see this?" Like, you should have seen this coming. It surprises me that it hasn't happened more. Lincoln Riley probably feels closer to Mike Gundy than he does, to a college president anywhere. But he's just smart enough not to put that out there. And here's the other thing: like, it makes me question how bad Mike Gundy's communication is with Mike Holder, his athletic director, because look, I've kind of talked to Joe Castiglione on and off, nothing worth printing, but it is apparent to me that Joe Castiglione, he's not sitting at home just trying to figure out what to do with his spare time. Like, he is talking to people. He's talking to other athletic directors, other college presidents, his own president, people in the medical community, people on this high up on the state level, anyone that he can talk to try and figure out where this is headed, what the time frame is doing, when is it moving? Is it moving up? Is it moving back? Is it wait and see? The target continues to move, and he is trying to prepare himself and his athletic department for what has to come, which is, possible, the potential of, reducing staff, reducing salary, figuring out how to have a season, when to have a season. Like, these athletic directors spend all their time on this stuff. And I guarantee you, Lincoln Riley, and he's told me this, Lincoln Riley knows everything that he knows. And I don't know if they meet about it daily, but they meet about it all the time. So it's like Lincoln Riley is not out of the dark in this. I just got a real feeling like Mike Gundy really is on the outside looking in, not knowing what's really happening here.
don't think there's any doubt about that. And that's a good point, Gary. I really hadn't thought about it that way, but and Oklahoma State's their statement last night, instead of putting out the stuff that they did, they should have just been like, "Yeah, that's Mike. We don't necessarily agree, but that's him."
I've been trying to find it for the last few minutes, but I love the guy who tweeted out, "Mike Gundy hates recruiting so much he's trying to not have to do it anymore."
I think it was Alan Kinney that tweeted.
Yeah,
that.
And it's exactly right. Like, I just don't know how tone deaf you could be, like, to mothers of recruits that are worried about sending their babies to your college for a whole other list of reasons. But now we're more worried about, let's get some money flowing into the state of Oklahoma than we are these guys being safe and okay. And I'm with Eddie. I'm a little more down the middle than a lot of people are on this, but at the same time, you just can't be that damn tone deaf.
By the way, I really don't think people are like, I really don't think there's a lot of parents out there that are going to be like, "Oh, Mike Gundy's putting my child at jeopardy."
I don't think so in general, but
go ahead, Josh.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be like the deciding factor, but do I think it's a question he'll get in a living room? Yeah, I bet you money it is.
And it's the negative recruiting that'll be used against them too.
Yep. Oh, I guarantee you every school that recruits against Oklahoma State has that screenshotted somewhere within their photo files.
Oh, I thought our buddy Alan Kinney put it pretty well on Twitter yesterday. It's almost like Mike Gundy, and we know how much he already hates recruiting in a way. It's like he goes out of his way to give them like hurdles that they have to go around. It's already but he also, like, he's very genuine in that I don't think he gives a damn about that stuff. Like, he doesn't
Agreed.
look at that as he in no way I don't think he would ever look at that and say he's going to lose out on a kid because of it. And if he did, he would probably just chalk it up to, well, probably not the right fit anyways. Don't you think?
I do. That's exactly how I would say. I think he almost sees it like weeding out. Well, if they're worried about that, then they're worried about the wrong things. That kind of mentality. And it kind of goes to like what we used to talk about with Bob, which I think started off as a good recruiting pitch and turned into a mantra that hurt them. And it was we'll win with you or without you. Man, that's a cool idea to tell a recruit, but when you start believing that shit too much, then suddenly you're closing doors on recruits because they don't respond in the way you want them to. Like, you have to adapt to them, not the other way around.
Well, and that's an attitude that you can get away with if you're Nick Saban, probably.
Sure.
Or a Dabo Swinney, and Dabo stepped out on that ledge this week as well. So it's not something, when you're already recruiting in the mid-40s, you're just adding another layer that you could have completely avoided. But then again, it's like we said, it's like, in a way, I almost appreciate Mike Gundy more because I don't think that he's a fake in any sense. What you see is what you get.
And some people will respond to that. So, I mean, I guess when you think about it, it's just a two-way street.
I don't know. I don't care how much you sanitize a jet. You're going to Florida, man. There's nothing good is happening in Florida right now. Like, it is a whisper away from being the next New York. I mean, it is going very poorly down there.
My cousin's a pilot. Like, I guess I just kind of look at it through this lens as like, why would you put other people? And I'm not saying they're going to be put in danger because I don't think that his pilot's going to contract coronavirus. But isn't that what this is all about? Like, we're all on the same team. We're kind of going through the same shit. Like, just because you're rich doesn't mean that you get to avoid all these kinds of things.
Exactly. It's one thing if you and your family are choosing to do something and you can isolate. Like, if Dabo Swinney happened to be a pilot and he could fly himself down there on his own plane and do, like, oh, okay, like, I can get there on that. Like, it's a very rich version of, hey, kids, we're going to get out of the house and go drive around, which I've done several times. Like, sometimes you just have to get out of the house. That's okay. But when you're calling other people into risk, that's a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're like Richard Branson and you own your own island. By the way, how about did you guys see the story about the couple that was like in the Maldives on their honeymoon and they're trapped
Yes, I
on this
did.
super, like one of those super resorts where it's all above the water, and like the staff is trapped there too, and they've been there for, like, it was 22 days, I think, when I'd read the story, but like that to me that's the worst case scenario. Like, I don't care if the Maldives and it's really expensive to go there, because that's like over by that's like by India or something, isn't it? Kind of almost in Asia.
I believe that's correct. I am mapping for you as we speak, but yes, that is my understanding.
But I mean, and I've always been fascinated by those. If I was young and attractive and just married, I would love to just go live in a grass hut that's over an ocean. I mean, but for 22 days, that would turn into a special kind of hell, where I think you'd just be like, really, fish again?
Do you know who would be a special kind of hell for, like in my world? Because I think if I go on that trip, we're leaving the girls with my in-laws. That would mean they signed up for like 6 days, and they got almost a month of, and they're trying to do their jobs and deal with the girls. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I got to decide between laying out or getting in my little, my edgeless pool here. I don't know which one I'm going to do, but I got to think about this.
I'm pretty sure I saw that Jay Cutler and Chris
yeah, they are too.
Bahamas.
Yeah,
did as well.
they're stuck.
They're in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
God, that'd be a dream to be stranded with both of them. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, but they're also
travel
stranded
public.
with her gay hairdresser best friend. He's there
That
too.
Cutler's I bet he's about to blow his mind out.
I've seen a lot of Very Cavallari. I know exactly who she's stranded with, unfortunately.
Do you think that they've watched Tiger King together and he's asked Jay any questions? So, Jay,
I can see that.
Oh, like, do you like meth?
Do you watch pornography?
Probably more about dick, but
Well, I thought that was how Joe Exotic got the dick, was that he trapped people with meth. He got him addicted to meth.
Yes.
He did, but he also asked him, when you watch, it was that thing about, oh, you haven't seen it, Carrie. I forgot about that.
No, but I'm you guys talk about it all you want. I'm not going to say I'm never going to watch it, but I get the gist of it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he definitely hooked him with meth.
Like when the Travis kid came around, his boyfriend that committed suicide, he asked him supposedly if he, when he watches porn, if he likes watching guys with big dicks or small dicks. And then that's how you would know if you were gay, I guess, is basically what Joe Exotic was insinuating.
Yeah, Travis says big, and he's like, well, you're not that straight then, are you?
Wow.
I mean,
damn it,
woo!
Joe Exotic.
Lot of guys questioning themselves after that comment. They're like, ooh, I need to turn Tiger King off for a little while. I'm not comfortable.
I'm sure
Pearl is
they're
upset.
Shut that baby up!
And we have the lead in.
No,
for the next
I did.
podcast.
I would be careful, Eddie. I can tell you from experience, I did, because everybody is at home, I did the worst thing that I've ever done on the radio this week. I gave one of my co-hosts a hard time for making his kids dumber by being their homeschool teacher. And his poor little daughter was listening to the radio in the other room.
Oh.
So, like, he literally had to take a break to go deal with his crying daughter that I made cry because I told America that she was dumb.
Well, I'm playing catch with Pearl, and she didn't know where the ball went, so she had a little freak out session there.
It happens. It happens.
Run her through a combine here in a couple years. We'll get those hands catching well.
I don't know. If she starts taking to softball too much, you might just want to be careful, Bob. Not that
Make
there's
sure she's
anything
putting the
wrong with
bows in
that.
her hair.
Yes.
Not that there's
Right,
anything wrong with
the
that.
bows and the ribbons. That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta make sure.
Have you guys been paying attention to any of the 20 for 2020 countdown that Rivals had just put out?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen
I thought
that.
it was pretty
I
interesting.
mean, I saw
that,
obviously the
Victor
inclusion,
Rattler was
but
17, and then Joe Castiglione was 15 today.
Interesting. What was the rationale? I'm looking at it now, but I want to read it while we're doing it. What was the rationale for it?
Oh, basically just kind of Riley has led his connection with Lincoln Riley and the infatuation that Max Kellerman kind of insinuated. What was that, Monday? Of the NFL's infatuation with Riley and keeping things moving in the right direction. I don't know. It was a little bit of. I thought it was a little bit of a hot take, but I mean, it cited that the Big 12 had already lost Cliff Kingsbury and Matt Rule, obviously, to the NFL. Could Riley be the next? And I don't know. It's kind of an interesting look into the college football world with nothing on the schedule ahead of us as far as spring ball or anything like that. So I don't know. It's just been kind of weird. Carrie, I heard you a little bit this morning as far as I think it was one of the promos or something. It is weird that like it feels like March Madness. Obviously, it didn't happen, but it feels like we got over that so much easier than like getting through this week with the Masters in a way.
Yeah, I think the NBA, people are just kind of like, and it's because I work for the flagship station for the Thunder, and I think people are, obviously a little bit more tuned into not shitting on the NBA. And Josh, I don't know how this plays in Houston with so much going on down there, but and they just get Russell Westbrook and. Even though they hadn't been playing well, they were still, third in the West going into – were they third or fourth? They were fourth in the West, playing kind of shitty. But it's almost like I'm almost resigned because of all this other stuff has happened. Like the NBA will not – I don't care if they have the finals or not. Like if they do, great. But it's not like I'm going to be like, damn it, when are the finals going to start? Like I've never thought that to myself.
It's not like a landmark of your calendar.
So screwed that coming back would be a little bit weird. I just the ideas of getting them back on the floor or getting the baseball teams out in Phoenix, I just find those. While I appreciate the idea and the thought, I just have a hard time thinking that's going to be not feasible because I know that they could afford it, but just realistically, I don't think that that's possible.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how difficult it will be to watch sporting events without fans in the stands, especially sporting events that you only care about in passing.
Yeah.
Although I've watched a lot of that damn iRacing. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, I mean, any type of sport. It's like the Tiger Phil thing. Generally, I probably wouldn't watch that. And I'd consider myself a pretty big golf fan.
But they did that before, right? And Phil just pasted him.
Yeah, and that was kind of weird, though, because it was during the fall. Nobody cared. It was on a college football. You actually played in West Virginia that day. It was the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Was that day? Yeah.
Yep. So it's one of those things that, like, if that's going on and that's the only sport that we can get our hands on here over the next month, I will watch the shit out of that.
You going to watch if the NBA players play horse?
No.
I don't give a damn if they play horse. That's something I just can't get into.
You could do that over social media right now. You could have Trae Young and Steph Curry going shot for shot on social media if you wanted to. I wouldn't give a shit. I'd tell you this, I've been more interested in watching Dave Portnoy open packages than I would be watching an NBA horse competition right now.
Absolutely.
We might be missing a real opportunity.
Have you sent him a black dildo?
My God, he's gotten so many dildos. And so many glitter bombs that he figured that out pretty fast. I mean...
Yeah, it's been pretty funny. I have found that, entertaining.
I mean, it's funny when he gets a weapon. But, yeah, I am afraid that we're going to be watching him open a pipe bomb at some point.
Yeah, those have to be getting vetted somehow, I would think. I don't know how, but I guess maybe the U.S. Postal Service is doing him a good deed. I have no idea. It's just weird, going into the evening hours when it's usually filled with, watching a game or watching a sport. And I know that we're on week 4 of this, and it's starting to become a normal kind of thing at night. But, just having any sports on is just, it's crazy. There's no other way to say it. I am thankful that I had some kind of messed up way, there has been normalcy with recruiting. Oklahoma still being decently active in that facet of things of turning out offers and things like that.
Well, and let's hit on that, Bob. You can start off talking about this too, because really, I think what Lincoln's done is something. Obviously, they came up with in the offices because it started trending among OU fans a little bit. But putting the hashtag out there, Serious3, which I think a lot of people, at least on the boards, have they got that figured out pretty fast because of some players were putting on their social media. But in this time, not much going on, not much sports. I thought that was a kind of a pretty slick move by OU to throw something like that out there, the Serious3.
Yeah, and that's sort of the difference between Mike Gundy and Lincoln Riley epitomized right there. Like, Lincoln Riley is going to figure out what he needs to do to keep the OU brand relevant, to keep it out there as much as possible. There's not any on-field stuff that you need to talk about. So you mentioned recruiting and just that one little hashtag, and then boom, now people are wondering. Then you get all the quote tweets from all the assistant coaches with their own little GIF spin on it and things of that nature. And then it leads speculation. And again, it's sort of what we've talked about the last couple weeks. This 2021 class has to get going, and it's going to eventually. And you can see that they're setting up those dominoes that once they start falling, it's going to be a great thing for OU. But I still sort of go back. When will this start eventually going down? How much longer can OU stay patient when you have two eyes out there from March, and you're wondering, the longer it goes, what we saw from last year is when you had Jonah Monheim and you had Major Burns, that went too long to where they didn't even commit or sign. How much longer can you keep relying on good faith that everything's going to come together the way you think it can in the beginning of April as we start moving forward?
See, I can tell how much older Bob is getting because he's losing patience for this stuff. Like, out of all of us on the staff, so for instance, when Latrell McCutcheon had an announcement, and we thought, wow, could he be committing to Oklahoma? Like, what's going on? And we think it might be coming down to a decision, like he might be ready to do it, and then he releases a top 10, and then it's like
he had a top 5 out,
and then it's like Bob Przbillo, it just destroys him, and you almost just be like, these goddamn kids.
It's like it was like a real life version of the Jim Carrey come on gif, like spitting food out of his mouth.
The Ace Ventura, yeah. But Josh, I mean, the Serious3 thing. The other thing that's been interesting is watching all the activity from Caleb Williams, because he likes a lot of stuff. He throws some eyeballs out there, and obviously, I think people assumed right off the bat that he was part of the Serious3. And then, is Mario Williams part of the series? I think he was a guy, because I said this to you guys, like, to me, a 3 when you're talking about offense, and because Lincoln Riley was the first one to put that out there, you think quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and just the activity around this. I'm kind of curious, kind of your thoughts, and also, like, what kind of vibe does Mario Williams give? Because Caleb Williams obviously loves this, is really into it, but is Mario Williams a guy that's really kind of extroverted when it comes to the social media stuff, or giving off a vibe?
No, I mean, and that's why I think you get these bits of news from him that tend to kind of shift the way we're looking at it. Because, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, there was not all this buzz about OU and Mario Williams, and now, I mean, everybody is having this conversation. And I think it all kind of started with Rob Cassidy's story a few weeks ago when he talked to the coaches there at Plant City and made it pretty clear that, Oklahoma is a school that's really high on his list, and that's where we think he would go if he was going to pick today. And I think that just kind of opened everybody's eyes. And then you started to get the Serious3 stuff. and I think everybody kind of has their notions of what's going on with Caleb Williams right now. And so you kind of, I think a lot of people just almost instantly put those two as part of the three. And, you know, it could be Kerry, it could be any of the four of us as the third, and everybody would rejoice. I mean, it wouldn't matter who the third are if you get those two. Yeah. Exactly. So then you throw in the third, and I've talked to some people, and, you know, I guess there's no good way to say it. I'm pretty confident I know who the third person is, or, you know, would be in this conversation. And I think you've got to you've got to have that conversation about, you know, where does that fit, and is it a running back? Because I know you brought that up, and that's not the impression I have, but I do think they have kind of a clear idea of why they're working it this way to connect these dots.
It's orchestrated, Josh. Would that be wrong to say? Like orchestrated.
What was that? You kind of broke up on me.
It feels orchestrated in a way, and almost
what
in a
was
way
that word again?
They've set out a schedule or set out a plan.
You keep breaking up. What was that word again? It feels what?
Oh, it feels orchestrated.
Okay.
In that almost Lincoln Riley and the coaching staff or the recruiting staff has, you know, almost said, let's build this thing up over a month. We're not going to get that push that we thought we were going to get because of the cancellation of the spring game or because of the movement of the spring game. And it almost feels like, to me, from the outside looking in, it feels like it's been orchestrated to a point that everything has almost been set in place, and they're almost, in a way, just executing a plan.
I think there's something to that, Eddie. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, how well they did back in the 2019 class when they had the big event for Red White, and you had Theo Weiss, you had R.J. Henderson, you had Jamal Morris. I mean, you had all these chips that just started falling as soon as they arrived on campus. Well, then you kind of had all these things that just continue. Like it started a domino effect, and I think that's what Oklahoma's trying to do here is we feel pretty good about these guys. And, you know, like Bob said, there does come a point when you've got to say, okay, guys, we need you to be in or we need you to be out. We need to know where this stands, because all this talk behind the curtains and us thinking we know who the three are and that stuff, it builds groundswell, but it's not what pushes you over the line with other recruits. Other recruits are not thinking of perfect example, Kendall Daniels. Kendall Daniels is not worried about what Caleb Williams is doing. He's not even aware this is probably going on. I bet he's never asked Brian Odom or any of the other Oklahoma staffers who the three are. He's not thinking like that. But once he sees, okay, the number one quarterback commitment did actually go ahead and commit to Oklahoma, okay, now there's something. You're on to something there. So I think that's how you start to build this, and that is – I don't think there's any question that Oklahoma is trying to put something in place to make it to where this spring closes strong for them, where they're sitting at 9, 10, 11 commitments.
Just put the phone right up to her.
That's not my child.
Let's just go full on Pearl cry.
She's been in the extra saucer for an hour. She's starting to lose it just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, and that's what I agree with, is there's probably a certain percentage that loves this build up, this intrigue, the tease, but then there's other recruits that none of that matters. That doesn't resonate with them. It doesn't mean anything. What's going to mean something, like Josh said, is if those guys flat out come out and publicly say they're picking the Sooners. That is going to be tangible momentum that you can build on, instead of whispers behind the scenes about what's to come. Instead, you can talk about what is actually happening.
Yeah, and that's another thing about this. That's all, and we talked about Mike Gundy. That's all OU really can do right now. I mean, it's just work on this stuff and come up with ideas, but I can also see why a lot of kids might not be into committing right now or making a college decision when they can't take any visits, and they can't even you can't even at OU you can't even go right now. The way things are set, you can't even get on campus until August. So I mean, and look, I think I should say something about that too, because it's not like that is a set in stone deal. Like if this thing, the models are starting to look better and all that stuff, and we're still not, it's hard to talk about this right now because it is still really, really bad out there. But let's say at the end of next month or the middle of next month, it does look like, a summer session could possibly happen or kids could come back to campus. Like they could reverse that. They could make it to where kids could come back and start working out and kids could attend classes, physically and things like that. So, don't just sit here and say, oh, I saw OU close the campus until August. Like it's over. Like this is screwed. It's not necessarily set in stone. Like, and I'm sure Lincoln Riley would love to have it lifted to where they could just have some kids come and visit.
I thought it was interesting during his media I guess tour in a way of the local radio stations this week. I noticed that Riley had passed along, and because I guess it kind of goes without saying, but I didn't realize they've sent some stuff out to players that don't have the ability to get to a gym. They've been able to send out medicine balls. Obviously, they're not sending out 85 medicine balls, but they have been able to
and
bands
send out and things like that.
And stuff to guys. Yeah.
Well, it to me, it kind of comes down to, with Lincoln trying to just stay on top of it, figure out when you can get guys on campus. I mean, I think the Big 12 loosening the restrictions from 2 hours to 4 was good, and especially with most people not having spring practices, you have to have some kind of advantage to be able to kind of teach kids or spend film time with them in the film room. I was glad the Big 12 did that.
Well, guys, and that's the thing. When I first read, and to kind of go back to where we started, when I first read the Gundy quotes, and he said these are 17, 18, 19, 20, and then I didn't know what else he was going to say, but you know how you do that? You read something, and you kind of think you know where it's going to go, and I was thinking he's going to say, these kids could use some normalcy in their life. They could use, I don't really understand why we're even trying to limit this. A, how do you govern it? It feels like, oh, we're just going to set this rule, and there's no way you can know it. There's no way you could to govern that. So why try? And secondarily, you get to give these players, these coaches, some sense of normalcy in their day, in their life, as to where you got these kids who are just kind of floating around and they don't know what to do. They can't go to class. They can't go to football. They can't do anything they're used to doing. But hey, there's Coach. I'm going to hang out with him for a few hours. We're going to go over some, our defensive sets against Texas Tech last year. Whatever it is that you're doing, you can go through some normalcy and some planned parts of your day. Yeah. Exactly. I don't understand why they're even trying to govern it because, like I said, and the bottom line is you can't. So why try? And plus, you get to
because
give
otherwise
these guys
Nick
something.
Saban's going to watch you sleep.
And that's, what? I mean, I guess. Maybe the pandemic will be the greatest thing to ever happen to Nick Saban if that's the case. I don't know. But I mean,
you're saying you're hoping it gets him? I'm confused.
No,
okay.
I'm saying that that Nick Saban gets to spend more time coaching, which will probably make him the happiest man alive.
I mean, I am concerned. I mean, that little Debbie's diet and his age. I mean, that he can't have any antibodies built up.
The best thing for him would be to continue dipping.
Is he dip?
Saban?
Yeah.
I think you choose.
Okay. I didn't know this.
I mean, I've never confirmed that, but I'm fairly sure that it always looks like he has a little bit of a pouch in his cheek.
No, but and that's the other thing about it. Does anybody really think if Mike Gundy didn't have such high expectations for his team this next year that he would be as crazy as he is right now about all this? He's got to know, this season has a chance to be great for Oklahoma State, but it also has a chance to be horrible for Mike Gundy if they disappoint. If you have Chuba Hubbard deciding to return, Tylan Wallace deciding to return, your defense has done better. it's got to be driving him insane that he lost spring because of Spencer Sanders and having a young quarterback that was that mistake prone as a freshman to not be able to spend more time with him on a practice field. Like, getting that team back in August 1st for him has to be the worst case scenario that he's ever faced as a coach.
I don't think that he's in any more.
I mean, OU's not
situation
in great
than
shape.
Lincoln
Yeah,
Riley.
with Lincoln. I mean, and Spencer Rattler.
See, I could almost argue that it's better for him. And it's not that it's better for his team, but him with all the experience he has coming back, he's going to be ahead of the curve.
You're talking about Mike Gundy.
Yeah, with Gundy. With Oklahoma, like they've got to restart at quarterback. They have to replace CeeDee Lamb. They have to replace Kenneth Murray. And
Baylor's got
Oklahoma
all new offensive defenses
Baylor's
to install.
Almost rebuilding their entire roster. I mean, I would say that this might give him a little bit of a leg up.
Is it? Oh my God! Is it? I can't believe I'm almost about to say this, but does it favor Texas the most if August 1st is the date that people get back and can start working out and practicing?
I don't think so.
Well,
You're building up a whole new offense, a new
coaches.
defense. Yeah,
I guess they have had so much turnover. Yeah.
And
I was
lost
strictly
a lot of
thinking
offensive
from an
line.
Ellinger standpoint.
Sure.
But
I mean,
the only person who didn't blow it was Herman. The rest of his staff was terrible, but Tom did.
How do you say somebody didn't blow it when they got rid of their entire staff on both sides of the ball, though?
I believe that was sarcasm.
Fired. That's the joke. That's the joke. Why is Tom still there?
Okay.
He got rid of
every
single person he had.
I agree with Bob. Like, when you're looking at your deck, your hand of cards, and you I'm going to put
I'll
4
take 5.
down.
Yeah.
No, just get rid of the hand's dead. Just start over.
Like you're playing draw. Yeah.
Exactly. I've got this 10 I'll hang on to. I bet I'll get the royal flush on the sweep here. This is going to happen.
What do you guys make of Riley saying that his team is a veteran squad? He told Gabe that earlier this week when he was making those media rounds. I thought that was kind of interesting. That you lose Neville Gallimore, you lose Kenneth Murray, and a guy like CeeDee Lamb, and obviously, I guess Jalen Hurts at quarterback. But
was that right after Dave Garrett started off that interview like a house on fire, ask him about where the emojis came from?
Yeah, I put on a seatbelt when that began, but.
So he's got 7 returning starters on offense. Okay, that seems reasonable to make that claim. On defense, you've got Stokes, White, Benito, and Fields, Brown, and I mean, I guess, but I think if you're
they're a
looking
veteran
at it
squad,
they're
a veteran squad if a bunch of guys aren't suspended, maybe.
Well,
Sure.
they're also a veteran squad if things don't go as probably a lot of the fans and probably even some of the coaches hope they do, where some of the incoming guys take jobs away from other guys. They want guys to go in there and win a job, and they want Justin Harrington to go in and take a job. They want Bryson Washington to go in and take a job and become bigger, faster, more athletic just by getting on the field.
And that's where Bob's story that we ran this week kind of comes into play, is just as far as you're looking at both sides of the ball and guys that are missing out on the opportunity because they don't have that spring. Obviously, Justin Harrington wasn't going to be an early enrollee, but at the same time, just getting him not being able to get him here on what we think would be June 1st isn't a good thing, is it?
Yeah, to me, that's a issue now. That maybe you wouldn't have been. But we haven't talked about that. Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're, and let's face it, I mean, it's usually June. It's the beginning of June because you have 8 weeks of off-season work, and that, in that 8, and then you have the week off, and then everybody goes home, and then they come back for the start of fall camp, or maybe it's been 2 weeks sometimes, but you have that June and July, basically those entire months to work with veterans, whether you're a transfer or a freshman early enrollee, and you don't have that now. So it's almost like, how much can you count on a freshman? Does this not so much, does it, who's veteran or who does it help? But if you're someone that was relying on a, mid-semester transfer or a freshman to come in and make an impact right away, that might be out the window for 2020.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to ask Perrion Winfrey, Joshua Ellison to step right in at tackle when they aren't going to be used to this level of football whatsoever. I mean, that is something that
or
we're
conditioned
trying to
for
convey.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, you look at conditioning, you look at scheme, you look at all that stuff, and that's why you go to those mid-year guys, and then I go to anyone that they were sort of tinkering with in terms of switching positions. It's just not viable. You're not really going to be able to have that grace period of learning of like trying to learn before you get to the season itself and experimenting. You just have to go. Once you get that all clear sign, you're just going to have to figure it out. And there's going to be some people that sink, and there's going to be some people that swim.
Well, look, Eddie and I have both been on the same train. Like, stop it with your goddamn stories about when the season's going to start or if we're going to lose it. So, it is a moving target. I don't know how much more I can say that. And we can talk about, how it's going to affect, and I think that's where we should be. Like the discussion that we've had today, like with what we know now, how is it going to affect the season? Not will there be a season. I think they're going to figure out a way to have a season. They have to. I mean, it's imperative to have a season because you cannot have a women's rowing team and a women's basketball team with $1 million coach and all the other, tennis and all the other sports that just do nothing but suck money out of your department that football supports. You basically have to cancel athletics for a year if you don't have football. So I think we're going to have football. I think the main thing is, how does this affect football? And how does this affect OU getting prepared for football? Because like Lincoln says, well, you can get by with 15, 20 practices. Yes, you can get by, and you can get a team ready. But, what is that how is that going to affect what a team to be and depth and all that stuff? Like, it's just, there's some parts about it that are really scary just in terms of the quality of the football we're going to be watching in 2020.
Guys, somebody asked me a question, and do you think this could become the catalyst for really, I don't want to say the dissolution of the NCAA, but a serious change to how the major programs and and I don't mean just the Power Five. I mean the Oklahomas, the USCs, the Alabamas, the big boys, how they operate within the NCAA versus how everyone else does. Like, because there are a lot of, Oklahoma's going to have to pinch some pennies. Toledo or somebody like that, how do they make this work?
Yeah, we even saw it last week where Iowa State was coming out, and you think they're on, they're not on great ground, but they're not like teetering on.
And every time you go to Ames, the facilities are a little bit better and a little bit better.
Yeah. And so they're having issues, and you feel like they're above the middle of the road. You do wonder what's going to happen with some of those group of five schools and anything below that level.
I don't know that. I think because you have universities and presidents involved, if you're saying, could you see USC and OU and Ohio State and all these schools, pooling themselves into a league of their own? I don't see that happening because I just think it sends too wrong a message. It's not you can't continue to send that, revenue hoarding while you're also not paying the players. Like, name, image, likeness could certainly help you smooth that over. But any talk of like some new super league that's going to emerge from this, I can't see it.
I don't know if it has to be a super league just so much as, like, at what point are these schools going to be like, we don't need you, like the NCAA? Like, we're going to almost go as a separate entity.
I just think that schools they're going to remain committed federal law. They're going to remain committed to the Olympic model, which is not a moneymaker, which, they need it for purposes of, let's face it, just not looking like you're there for the money. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Putting just painting it, painting it a little bit differently.
Little blush on the pig.
It's kind of like, I mean, it really is the reason why there's so many, and it's not. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There's a lot of great charities in the world, but a lot of it was formed because people that have a lot of money wanted to find a way to give back and create some goodwill and all that. So it's all kind of hand in hand. I mean, it eventually ends up with something good, but it was started just so people don't look like a bunch of greedy bastards.
No, I mean, like I said, it was just something I hadn't really thought about, but it's because I can't help but wonder if there are going to be some athletic departments that literally just can't survive this.
For a year, though, I mean, I think everybody can survive it. It's just how deep you're going to have to make the cuts. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, like I saw like Old Dominion cut the wrestling program the other day or something. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And I mean, Old Dominion, like I know a lot of people don't care, but they have a pretty good wrestling program for a school their size, particularly.
You know what it'll probably continue to do? It'll probably make it tough for people like OU that don't want to pay, more than $1 million for shitty opponents. People are going to try and make this back by charging more to go get their heads kicked in from, Alabama or USC or Texas. So that's where I think a lot of these schools will try and make this back over the next few years. The cost for playing a shitty team is going up.
I mean, you're probably right. What's the one, Florida A&M? I feel like they're the one that I always think of that just...
The Rattlers, aren't they the Rattlers?
Yeah, they just walk in the stadium and be like, you're going to get massacred today. Like, you just know it's going to be ugly.
They've done that in Norman before, yeah.
I
Tennessee,
there was that
Chattanooga.
one year I think they had, like, it may have been the year they played Oklahoma. They had played Oklahoma, and then the week before that was, like, Alabama, and the week before that was, like, not as good, but it was, like... like Florida International or Florida Atlantic or something, and you're like, God, dog, you guys are just getting it's just a bloodbath every time you get on the field.
Yeah, that's the sad part for those schools because they're not playing to keep their athletic budget alive. They're keeping to keep the lights on at the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're not trying to build a new facility. They're just trying to keep the lights on the one they have.
Oh, trust me. And it'll probably lead to, I don't know, maybe it'll lead to better games. Maybe it'll lead to some of these schools, like maybe Boise has to start going all in and playing every big school that they can in order to make back more money. Maybe teams like, maybe Jay Norvell is going to spend all his Saturdays getting his head kicked in non-conference because Nevada's going to have to go chasing money now. I think there could be a lot of ways this happens. So yeah, maybe Florida A&M becomes, kind of like the going to get a whore in Tijuana. It's really cheap and it's really easy.
Wow, those poor Tijuanas.
You like that, Eddie?
They didn't do anything. I mean, they did a lot.
I think that's offensive.
Well,
Eddie only goes to Tijuana for the donkey shows.
I've been to El Paso and stared across the border at that murderous capital, so Eddie's not... I would say Eddie's most unsure moment of himself is near the El Paso, Mexico border.
That's the only time I've heard Eddie admit to being uncomfortable.
I was just hallucinating because we had been in the car for so long.
And you only had like 8 more hours to go.
I've stared at that John Hopkins map so much, and I always tend to just get lost in looking at East Texas, just thinking how long it takes you to go from El Paso to San Antonio.
Oh, my God.
Like how long a drive that really is.
That is some country that has not been explored. We'll put it that way.
Anything else in recruiting or just football-wise you guys wanted to bring on before we get out of here for this week? Or just
I
nonsense?
to a couple of in-state names.
Okay.
Since they've been picking up offers like crazy. Colin Oliver and Ty Williams. Any chance Sooners can make a run here? Do they want to? And how much does it hurt the fact that they can't see him during the spring?
I think both are possibilities. For those that that didn't see it because it kind of got lost in all the pandemic stuff, we released our top 35 state rankings about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and Ty Williams is my number 2 guy in the state. I loved him on tape, and really, I don't know if it was just everybody finally had time to sit down and watch, because Oklahoma kids, it's always a little slower than some other places, but he has blown up. I mean, Tennessee, TCU, and who was the third one? Yes, Texas Tech yesterday.
Texas.
So, I mean, he's had a huge run of offers, and that I think he's somewhere around 12 to 15 now, and I would say 2 weeks ago he might have had like Tulsa and, Kansas or something. Like, it was very limited. Georgia Tech, I mean, I think he's got offers now from every major conference. I mean, it's really taken off for him. And I think there's some interest. I've talked to some people that tell me there has been some contact. Oklahoma's asked some questions about him. I think really for me, when I watch him play and, having seen him in person, I think the 2 questions are, what does his size-speed ratio work for Oklahoma? Because I don't think he's a 4-4 guy, but he's a safety, so he doesn't necessarily have to be. That's not quite as big a deal, but you want him to cover ground, and I think he shows that on tape. But then his size is a bit questionable. The last time Rivals saw him, he was about 6 foot 180 is what he came in at the Dallas Rivals camp last spring. Now, seeing him in person, it surprises me to see that he measured in at 6 foot. I didn't think he was that big. I thought he was more of a 5'10 guy. But, and I know that feels small, but when you look at what Oklahoma's doing recruiting defensive backs, they are being very deliberate about size, speed. Those things they have to check the boxes to be guys that OU is really going to pursue. They want length and they want speed. I think Ty Williams is absolutely an OU caliber player. I think the question is, do they feel like they can find a better player? Do they feel like they can find a guy that really puts them over the hump? Or is Ty Williams the best possible safety they could land? So it's a good problem, because I think Oklahoma would have a very real chance if they did get involved. Colin Oliver, kind of the same question. I actually had a conversation with somebody earlier this morning about him. I think OU's absolutely interested. I think they were disappointed that he wasn't able to make it that day when everything got shut down. I don't think an offer was going to happen there, but I think Oklahoma really wanted to see him this spring. And for me, I don't think the question is speed, because he went to OU's camp last summer, ran in the 4.7s, the low 4.7s, and I felt like Oklahoma was pretty okay with that from what I was told. I think the question with Colin Oliver is Oklahoma would like to see him making plays not on the defensive line. When you look at his highlights, it's a lot of stuff where he's either playing a rush guy or he's got his hand down. I mean, he's doing a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage. You're not seeing him make a lot of read and react plays like a normal linebacker, like Kenneth Murray did last year. Deshaun White's going to be expected to do this year. I think there is a feeling they just want to see him do more of that. And if that's possible and he checks that box, I think an offer is absolutely possible for Colin Oliver.
Anything else just in terms of, I know a lot of offers have been going out. We talked about Latrell McCutcheon had named his top 10. But I know Bob is also going to go insane if there are any more eyeball emojis and no commitments.
Well, it's not me. It's the Twitter replies that come my way when that starts happening. When we start to get around 3 or 4 that haven't been accounted for, it gets ugly fast.
I am people on my timelines. I don't see it.
Yeah, is it more? Are they? I'm curious. Like, is it more? Why don't you do your job kind of stuff, or just you're just saying it's just the barrage of people wanting to know who it is weighing you down?
It becomes both. Someone's like, was this the second eye or the third eye? Or, why does Lincoln do this so they ain't going to make a move? Like, it's just it's just a combination.
If only there was a spot on the internet that you could go and look and keep up to date with all that stuff. That's crazy how that works.
If that was only someone's job on this podcast specifically, to have a thread
and who does it well
was called tracking the eyes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Bob keeps track of it for you people. Just go look at it.
I was pleased that you did get a guy that yelled at you because he had to pay to read your stuff this week. Or was that last
That
week?
was the poorest of poor.
Yeah, I didn't want to call him a poor just because I've seen that guy around.
Can't right now.
I don't want to call anybody a poor right
It's
now.
against
Yeah,
pandemic rules. You can't call somebody a poor.
I'm not
during
Mike
the
Gundy.
Pandemic. You can't call him a slut. You can't call him a poor.
I mean, I would like to establish that we are a very anti-slut shaming podcast. We are very against that. So that's a stance I'll take personally.
So Tiff got around a lot, huh?
We're not going to comment on that. I mean, we don't want to get into these conversations.
I talked about Bob impregnating his wife last week. I mean, you're no different.
I'm going to say at the re-listening, that was as uncomfortable as I've been re-listening to this podcast in a while. That
was bad. That was
bad.
not good. That's a bad moment.
That's a big no, Carrie. We don't do that in the future.
I don't recognize bad. To me, that was good.
Well, if we're going, if this is It's Always Sunny and we're going for ooze, we got them. There's no question. I did want to say that the two gasp. Yeah, you're right. We're going for gasp.
Gasp,
I
not
misquoted
laughs. That's
Sunny.
Eddie's thing.
I'm a little. Yep. I'm embarrassed about it.
Has there been?
I can't hear Eddie half the time the last 20 minutes. I have no clue what Eddie's been saying.
I'm curious if the orders by the governor in Texas, or was it? Yeah, it had to be the governor in Texas. Has it created a hostile environment for Louisianans in Houston right now?
No, and it's funny enough because Tiffany works with a lot of them. There's a lot of anesthesia people that are whether it's docs or CRNAs as Tiffany is that are Cajuns, including one that I've met him several times. I know him very well. One of the guys she works with day to day is a Louisianan, and it's been interesting because one guy, this is kind of sad. He had a loss in his family, and I think it was the day after Abbott issued that order. Well, he had to go back. I mean, it was a close family member, so he had to go back, and so now they're going to have to go there, quarantine. Be there for however many days to go through the funeral and all this stuff, and then come back and quarantine for 14 days afterward. I mean, it's crazy.
That would be the only good thing about getting the coronavirus and dying right now, is that none of your enemies that want to be fake friends can go to your funeral.
Does that happen a lot? Is that a thing? I'm incapable of pretense. If I don't like you, you friggin' know it. There's no, I leave no doubt.
Like the Twitter fight you got into Monday night?
Oh yeah. What if Billy Liucci showed up at your funeral? Would that piss you off?
I would have, guys, and okay. Tiffany's going to need some help on this, okay? Tiffany will live much longer than I am. Her family lives forever.
We have to be the bouncers at your funeral.
You guys are going to have to show up because there's going to, my friends can handle certain people from my past, but you guys are going to have to handle certain internet folks.
Taylor Hamm.
That might try to show up.
Billy Liucci.
Yes. Why is it my A&M beef? I have a lot of A&M problems. Because
they're
crazy. For some reason.
They're insane.
But then again, if you look at some of the guys I like the best are in the A&M market. I love Brian Peroni. Jason Howell is one of my closest
I like both those
buddies
guys,
in this business. Yeah, and so
Peroni's just a goofball.
Yeah, Peroni's a goof. I can tell terrible stories from him at multiple Army Combine check-ins. He does those poor Cody Thomas.
I like Courtney Rowland. She's
a
nice girl. I mean, she's always been very sweet.
So, there's a lot of good people in that market. Maybe that's why I react so negatively to the ones that aren't. But it's an interesting marketplace. I think we have a crazy life sometimes, and then there's a lot expected of them from that fan base.
The funny thing is being on the outside, seeing the Texas media and the A&M media go out. Because, I'll be honest, I've always had a great relationship with Jason Sukuma. We used to work together for the same publishing company, and he would come to Tulsa, and we would have to kind of hang out together all weekend, so we got to know each other really well. And for all the Ketchum stuff, I don't hate Ketchum. He's just he's an eccentric dude. But there's I never had a problem with Chip Brown other than I thought that he threw a lot of shit against the wall in the Big 12 missile crisis that It's like everybody just treated him like he, was the god of that thing. And how could he not have been? He threw every scenario possible out there.
He tended to speak on behalf of the entire conference when he was clearly speaking for Texas.
Yes.
That was really my beef with it.
Like,
he would say things, I'm like, you don't know where Oklahoma comes out on that, or you don't know where Kansas is on this.
Yeah, it was a lot of know-it-all kind of little bit of.
And I like Chip. Like, I mean, I don't say that to be
there.
mean. I thought that was my big gripe, because I mean, you have to give him credit. He was ahead of that story for a while, and then it felt like when other people started catching up, there was this need to still own it a little bit, and there were things that I thought were leaps of faith more than
I haven't slept in 43 days. And we have 70 new content items since 3 a.m. Check it out. It became an industry all to itself. It was out of control. Yeah. But no, I mean, generally, yeah, there's more nut jobs in the A&M market than the Texas market. And we have our own nut jobs in the OU market, so I'm not discriminating.
Oh yeah, there's no judgment. Yeah, we've got fanboys aplenty. They seem to be growing. They're multiplying.
Well, maybe
that's why we're here for you guys.
Maybe they'll be
the
homeless
fight.
when this is all said and done. That's my wish.
Wow, I mean that's a little harsh.
Well, they need
I'm friends with that, buddy.
You're not, Eddie. You are not.
Oh yeah, Eddie is the Jackie Moon of the OU beat. Everybody love everybody.
He is not.
Hey, just real quick, and we'll get out of here. I know we're kind of wrapping up. The two offers I'm working on are, kind of offer breakdown that we've been doing. I'm trying to turn into a weekly thing, but OU keeps adding offers. It keeps slowing me down. But the two I did kind of want to note were Malik Neighbors from Lafayette, Louisiana, that really has been seen by many as a wide receiver, but Oklahoma, he put out some DB tape this week. Oklahoma saw it, liked him, and made an offer as a DB, and he told our guy Sam Spiegelman he will be taking a trip to Oklahoma once this all kind of calms down. So I think Oklahoma definitely has made a good early impression on him. And the other one that I think is very interesting is Josh Simmons from San Diego Helix High School. A big offensive lineman, had been committed to Oregon for a while, came off of that this week, and I kind of asked around to see where OU was right after that Oregon decommitment, and within about 12 hours he had an Oklahoma offer. So I think it's new. It's all very new, but I do think he pretty quickly caught Oklahoma's eye, and I think it's a guy that Oklahoma, he's 6'5", 330. This is a big guy that really fits what Bill Beanbo's looking for. So I think he's just a guy I would keep an eye on going forward.
All right. Eddie, any updates on the on the Bobby Flay, search to beat Bobby Flay?
No, I've kind of relapsed. I've started doing more curbside service. I think I like that style a lot more than I had been doing.
Well, if you need any crockpot recipes, I've got a couple of books. You're welcome to borrow, or I'll just tell me how I want some chicken stuff, and I'll screenshot you a recipe.
I think I could probably afford missing a couple of meals, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't know. I might break it back out. See.
All right. Well, Bob, you go take care of the baby. Josh,
I changed my first diaper during a podcast. That is the first time I've ever done something like that, and you guys didn't notice.
That's pretty impressive.
Congratulations,
I'm happy.
Oh, believe me, we noticed.
Yeah, that baby was more present than you thought it was. Pearl was a bigger part of this podcast than any of Josh's children have ever been today.
Pearl 1,
sure.
Bob 0.
All right.
You did a good job.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Stay safe. Continue your social distancing. Don't get sick. Please keep subscribing. We're still cranking out the content. As long as teleconferences continue to happen, there'll be news to talk about. So I can't wait for the next crazy coach to say something stupid. That will probably happen today. All right, thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you back here next time on the Unofficial 40, brought to you by Soonerscoop.com.